Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. Give us a minute or two to let guests arrive, and then we'll kick things off. All right. While we're waiting for people to arrive, I will do just a quick welcome. Thank you for joining PSR PA for Watchdogging 101. Presenting today is Chris DiGiulio, PSR PA's Director of Environmental Science and Investigations. A little housekeeping, please put your questions in Q&A. Feel free to use the chat for sharing insights, resources, and links. And we're looking forward to your questions and discussion. I'll pass it off to Chris.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris DiGiulio, as Tanya said, Director of Environmental Science Investigations. I am going to be presenting about watchdogging. This is kind of like a template aspect of lessons learned from my experience on the Mariner East pipeline project, which I fought for about 10 years alongside one of my friends, Laura Snyder. I know who's probably in here. We realized how important watchdogging was in our community when an entity came in and we were unsuspecting of it. So I'm here just to give everybody an idea of what we learned in that in a structural aspect of how to create a watchdogging system and like what's really important in regards to like your basically safety and situational awareness. Um, we plan on doing a series of these, and specifically, this will be like a longer one that goes into the basics. The next ones will be something that will focus on particular infrastructure, such as like data centers or pipelines, or whatever's coming Pennsylvania's way, which is a lot. So I'm going to move on, and it is not letting me. Okay, here we go. All right. What we're going to cover is the what and why, the key principles and objectives, and individual versus a team effort, what to look for, some good practices, especially in documenting and methods, um, knowing your rights, which is critical, and how to report these things. And then I'm going to show you guys a case study that kind of encapsulates a project that we're currently working on in PSRPA. So what is watchdogging at its core? It's all about monitoring, detecting, alerting, and then response. And this is all about like, it's almost like when you see something, you say something, but that just seeing something is not enough. You gotta kind of document it to be able to be kind of validated or validate what you have said. And alerting is basically when you see something wrong, you got to notify the right people. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And the response afterwards is another topic that I think has been quite difficult in my experience watching the responses. But what we're not limited to is the response of others. We can continue to respond. So a good watchdogging system, from what I've learned, is it's very proactive, reliable, clear, and actionable. And I see one example right now about proactivity is a lot of folks fighting data centers. That is proactive. People are trying not to see the shovels get in the ground, and that is the best place to be. You don't want the shovel in the ground. Once you do, it is a really hard thing to fight. And in the Mariner East, we learned that. So it doesn't mean it's over. You continue fighting. And then reliable means it's running continuously, it's consistent, and clear is like what no, it knows what wrong looks like. All of you do know what wrong looks like in your community, and you get to define that baseline. Actionable, it means it does something useful when triggered. Observations alone is not enough. It must lead to some kind of documentation and reporting, which we will talk about a lot of that. So why watchdog? And this is what I think a lot of any of us who have watchdogged or are watchdogs, I think pretty much everybody is a watchdog at this point. It's just this is a more organized idea of it. It's just about not being more than a by. It's about being more than a bystander. Like, we all see things and we complain about things. This is something that can teach you how to take that energy and place it somewhere effective. We're dealing with self-regulated industries. These companies are policing themselves, and we have all seen what that does, especially in environmental justice communities. These communities are near polluting infrastructure, and they suffer disproportionate health burdens. And a lot of the communities I've worked in are in environmental justice communities. And again, we walk into communities not telling anybody what to do. These are tools and resources we share for the community, and we hand it over to them so that they have, the tools that they need. And of course, we always are there to help at any point. Regulators, they rely on you too. And I know there's a lot of opinions about some of our regulators, but in PSRPA, we're always trying to make our public servants understand that they serve the public, and so we do have to have a relationship. And we're finding out that they need us. Protection and safety of community members is critical, and then protection of our assets and local environment. You have to catch things early in order to prevent further damage. That's actually called protection, right? Not really. We're not all fond of when we're seeing a lot of fines for violations. We all like the word protection, and I think we're trying to learn how to actually make that word mean something. And you know, educating and engaging residents and first responders, which we learned in the Mariner East as well. A lot of our first responders did not know what a HVL pipeline was, which is a NGL. They had so many acronyms for it, but it's basically liquefied, butane, propane, and ethane, which has very inherent dangers within them, not just like an all hazards program would work. And then, of course, our elected officials. One of the key things is early detection saves lives. Community watchdogs have triggered investigations that regulators missed. Just understand that's how powerful watchdogging is. So some of the goals, why do we watchdog? Yeah, I mean, beyond that, what kind of goals are we trying to achieve? We're trying to identify health and safety risks, gather resident testimony, document environmental justice concerns, demanding cleanup, mitigation, or shutdown, support legal or administrative complaints, track repeated pollution events, verify permit compliance, push for stronger enforcement, which has happened in at least the fights that I've been in, which we want to call them wins, but I mean, they are wins, but it's a really hard task to get stronger enforcement. And we're going to explain a lot why enforcement is such a problem. And it's such a hard thing to see. When you have poor investigations, it's really hard to have any enforcement. Inform the media and public officials. That's been a really helpful tool for us in a lot of these watchdogging communities. And then build a public record over time, which is super critical. So watchdogging can go from an individual effort versus a field team. So like it starts with one person sometimes, and that person can, basically get the community involved. They can start speaking out loud. So I mean, everyone is the eyes and ears of their own community. Even people that can't get out in the field. There are so many levels of watchdogging, anywhere from a financial watchdog to somebody who's like, relationship mapping, who knows who and why did this happen. Residents can tell a team member when they see or hear something. So if some people can't get out, the watchdog that can get out can be, I guess the mobile unit, which I have been a lot in mine. And I think, again, my friend Laura Snyder also has been, because people can't leave home sometimes, whether it be disability or that they're working. So it's important that you connect with your community and find what part of watchdogging you can do. Just because you can't get out in the field does not mean you're not a watchdog or cannot be one. Your daily observations build the baseline record over time. And so building a team, a field team, it's actually safety in numbers is also a thing. We always have a buddy system aspect to watchdogging. In our communities, people have to understand that you're not alone. And we're not alone. When we get together, I always have this thing. It's like, what's the last couple of letters in unity? Community. It's unity, UNITY. So we have to unite as a community. We are stronger together. So and I feel like this is something that doesn't matter what political spectrum you're on. If you care about your community and it matters. This is a thing that does build community in ways that I have never seen before. Field members have flexible schedules. We have tools, drones, and we can deploy them on call. A team creates greater capacity for documentation and reporting. And the members watch this The members watch for each out for each other, and that's really important. Hence the buddy system going out in a field. And there's ways to get around that if so you cannot get out. And I'll explain that later. Rotate coverage to ensure continuous monitoring without burnout. That's critical. Burnout is a real thing, and we all have to, understand that self-care is critical in sustaining ourselves within this. So some safety practices, there's a do's and the do nots. The big one is do not enter restricted or hazardous property. That is so critical. Don't touch unknown surfaces. I'm a chemist and I know that, like I go and sample things, but if you do not understand what something is, please do not touch it. Don't go around it because, you do not, once it touches your skin, it could go into your body. It could be taken home with you. So we'll talk about PPE too, which is personal protective equipment. You confront workers in unsafe conditions. I always, I personally do not think confronting workers is a great idea. They're recording you, and you can be cordial and nice, but don't confront them because you're mad at the workers or you're mad at the project. It's typically not their fault. They're just doing their job. And some of them can be combative, so you do not want to put yourself into a situation where you're alone or you're being remember you're also a member of your community, and what you do out there also affects and impacts your community. Don't make claims you can't document. I think that's pretty clear. And share private medical details without consent. That is something we all need to recognize, and would respecting our own anybody with their own medical issues. Um, and I'm gonna have like some pictures in here that are just coming from like my watchdogging experience. So like this is just an example. Construction site, do not enter. It doesn't say no trespass, but like it's still don't enter it. Because you can impede or obstruct the work or progress of these workers, and they will call the police on you. So try to listen to these boundaries. There's ways around it we'll talk about later. But some of the do's are record the facts carefully with dates and times. Use timestamps on all photos and videos. And there are apps on your phones that you can do this with. It's very important because they are actually on the image. I'll show you some of those images. It literally timestamps it there. So if you want to send it to somebody, it's really hard to argue that you were not there at that time and at that location. You work in pairs when observing, as I said. Protect vulnerable residents' identities big time. Always protect them. There are so many people that want to give you information, but they're afraid to be known. And there have been instances where people are bullied. Some of these industries or these companies are well, they're bullies, and they will try to intimidate people to quiet you. And this is why watchdogging as a team is important. We protect those who are most vulnerable. We were protecting, people who have the firsthand, like right up front information that could be lost if we do not protect them. We have to give them a safe place to talk or share. You refer medical emergencies to professionals immediately. So any medical emergency, I always say, even any emergency, always call 911. And remember, 911 is a documented call. There's a call center that's right to knowable that you called, and it's a good due diligence. And you always preserve your original files and notes. Know your rights. So safety first, right? This is something we hear all the time. You have no permission to film here. Yes, you do. You have the right to document. You do not need the permission to film in public. So if anybody tries to tell you you can't film this or that, that is not true. From a public standing area, like on a sidewalk or in the public, even if they're on their own easement or in some kind of their property, you could still film them from a public area. You have to know your local laws. That's critical. There's local ordinances. Knowing your environment is kind of what I'm getting at here too. Sometimes you understand what police behave like. They may not go take your side, but just understand the behaviors of your community. Don't let it stop you. Just be aware of it. Local laws is really important, especially in regards to like ordinances or municipalities. It does change in Pennsylvania in the least. I've gone in other states. They have different rules. And so make sure you understand this before you go out. Again, walking into a community, you are impacting the community, so just have the respect of that community and try to follow and abide these laws. Public versus private property. I always used to say in my videos, I have the permission of the property owner or I am on public property in my video. So it's very clear, especially on like live feeds. So nobody can like say I wasn't. Or I'm not impeding or obstructing the work or progress of this company just by filming, because some of them have tried to tell me because I'm filming, it's making their workers nervous, and they've called the police on me, and the police were like, you should be able to work in public if you're working in public. Like, so you say these things clearly. It makes it very, it's about being clear on your videos. So it can't be, it's just always remember you're being videoed too. So it's about interpretation. And if you've said it clearly, it's clear. You have the right to document from public land, and then know the boundaries. We have things on some of these projects like easements. These easements could be temporary easements on people's property. For example, like in pipelines, they get a temporary easement. The people who own the property still, but the easement is under construction. If the workers are not on that property and you're not impeding the work or causing danger to yourself or others, in actuality, you can walk on that person's property, even if it's called an easement, but you have to have the permission of that property owner. And that's like very pipeline oriented. So when in doubt, step back. A good photo from the right spot beats a legal problem. That's truth. You don't want, because as soon as the police get called out, you're no longer documenting. Um, if the police are called, you stay calm. State your rights clearly. Do not argue. Call your legal contact if you have one, if you think you're getting in some kind of trouble. That's why I have the buddy system. One of you handles the police, the other one is starting to contact people. And also document the interaction, because the police do have their body cams. You have every right to document as well. So when the actions don't match words, you know your community the best. Trust what you see. This one, I have a picture up here that's interesting because, like, when we're talking about like community knowledge, you have a gut check. It's like, yo, I've got a feeling. There's poor practices that we're looking for. There's signs of a problem. This is my favorite one, the biosensor. I work with chemical sensors, but the best sensors are you. You are the biosensors. Your smell, taste, hear, everything you're sensing is the best sensor. So you are. Then we're also going to be documenting health impacts. I think my title somehow got erased, so it didn't really make that clear. But I just put this sign in. It says road work versus pipeline construction ahead. And this is something in the Mariner. It was not really road work. They were not working on the road, but they put road work signs up everywhere. And it made our community kind of feel like this was like the improvement of our public utility, our public areas, when in actuality, it was a pipeline easement. It was a pipeline project, and they put roadwork signs up. So when I made complaints about that, they came down to my road and they put pipeline construction ahead, just kind of to slap me in the face, because I wasn't wrong. They weren't clearly labeling what the project was, and the community deserves to know that. So, those kind of practices are like, why would you put road work up when it's not road work, and confuse our community? It was really hard to motivate our community to understand what was going through our community. And that was just one tactic they used to, kind of like a psyop, psychological operation, just to make people feel like this is not a scary project or a pipe bomb going under your feet. But when they came to my back road, they put it up there just to smack me in the face, which I kind of found funny. So I took a picture of it. Oh, there, identifying behaviors. There it is. Didn't know that. All right. So your best tools, community knowledge and gut instinct. That is your best tools. So you know your community the best. What's normal? What are the normal smells, truck traffic, water flow, historical baselines before operations began? The seasonal patterns versus unusual activity. Who lives nearby? Community health trends. Very important. Local geography, where water flows, where wind blows. Now, for the people fighting data centers, this is something you guys have that is to be aware of now. That's your baseline. It's really important to start looking at these things and documenting them before there's any shovels in the ground or anything gets approved. There's a huge opportunity right now, especially with the state data center fight, which I give so much credit to all of the folks out there fighting them. You're doing such a great job. And I put these pictures in because this is Marsh Creek Lake near me. The Mariner East went like by it, and this is a reservoir for drinking water for about, I don't even know, millions of people across Delaware County and into the state of Delaware, and also Chester County. And we love this lake. This is like our home. We're always on a paddleboarding. We do sunrise paddleboards. We knew our lake. We knew what it looked like. So, and we knew the communities around it because we're always out and about. So it goes towards when you feel like something just ain't right. that feeling. Your instincts are data. Do not dismiss what your bodies and your senses are telling you. Don't ever let anybody tell you you're crazy. Always document them. It's data. Trust them. So if something feels off and you can't name it yet, you know, that's okay. Like just pay attention to it. Document whatever you can. Date, time, location, description. Like I always said, what's the harm in taking a picture at a time? Because you never know what's going to happen once you look back at that picture, what you caught. And I've got lots of those. That's actually been something that I've, you know, wish I knew more of when I was doing it because I was afraid to stop and take a picture. I felt weird doing it. It don't feel weird because I've caught stuff that caught the company in a lie like 4 years later. The gut check is the start of the investigation. It's not the end of it. So compare notes with other community members and patterns they reveal problems. So the pictures on the bottom here is this guy that's putting like his kayak away. He's got all the stuff laid out, and I was very weirded out because why? And it had foreign plates, not foreign, but like plates out of state. And I'm like, I knew that the workers always have trucks that have plates out of state. And this guy's putting the kayaks, they're all walking out, and I'm like, wow, something's wrong. So I put my drone up. I also got an indicator from a local resident that said something's happening in Marsh Creek. I put this up and I found the next picture, which is right here. And that is a gigantic spill of drilling fluid that ended up infiltrating our lake. So the picture all the way over to the right, I'm sorry, to the left, that's what the lake should look like. This one on the right is what happened, and they spilled, I don't remember the total number of gallons in, but this traveled a half mile up a tributary. So they didn't figure out they spilled it until it reached our lake, our drinking water, and it was an exceptional value wetland as well, and they destroyed it. Um, yeah, so I trusted my gut. This is weird. Why these guys on kayaks, they were actually caught trying to clean it up without telling anybody. And so once you get that drone up and blow it up, kind of like in the media or whatever, they can't hide it. People cannot hide things once you start exposing them. So what your eyes tell you is very important. Like I'm just gonna do some simple examples like water red flags, water running where it shouldn't. Uh, you know, some discolored or stinky water. That's a simple thing that you guys can definitely recognize again when you know your community and something changes. It could be several reasons. It could be natural, but if you know there's infrastructure or construction going on, you know, document it and always, call it in if you don't feel like it should be like that. New containment structures are interesting because why are they there? Like hastily built berms, and if you look down below, there's a yellow berm hastily built in our lake. For what reason? It was to contain the spill. Um, Dead vegetation along waterways like fish kills, browning vegetation, foam or scum. Sometimes there's natural scum, but also, again, if it's not normally there, why is it there? Something upstream could have caused that. Document it. And the other picture here is actually workers on Mariner East. They were cleaning up what they call a frack out or a inadvertent return, which was then it caused a huge sinkhole. So there they are scrambling, trying to clean it up with a suck truck and some squeegees. They try to clean it up so quickly and hastily, which is kind of annoying because they should do it much better. But document all of that. Operational red flags are increase in truck traffic, especially trucks, large loaders. We call them vacuum tankers or suck trucks in this area, which you can see on the one picture on the left. That's a suck truck, we call it. Also in fracking world, they call them residual waste trucks. They're kind of similar. They both have a vacuum in them, and a tube, and they carry water or waste. Um, Security posted on or near site. That's a big one. If you see security, like why do they have security in like a suburban neighborhood or a rural place? They don't want people to see something, and the security is usually there to, I don't know, they're not really protecting the workers. They're trying to see who's watching, and they're trying to protect them from you seeing things, typically. Lights, noise, and night work. This is a big one. A lot of people do not have sound ordinances at night, so we do, and they have to get a waiver. So if you see this happening, always ask your township, your municipality, did they get a waiver for that work? If you don't have those things, you still document it because it's quite disturbing. It's a nuisance, essentially. So document it. A lot of after hours work is indicative of a problem, in my opinion. New construction, that's unexplained. I'm always looking for like survey sticks. There's sticks with pink ribbon on them. Survey markers are 811 flags. 811 flags are basically people 811 is supposed to be called before people dig, and they have to identify every utility under that ground. That's a symbol that something's going to be happening. New berms, trenches, pipes appearing quickly near property lines or water features. So again, these are workers that are cleaning up another IR, trying to act like nothing's happening here, but it was in the middle of an intersection, so that was kind of interesting. But again, the guy that's posted out in front is a security guy just watching. Not sure for the safety of him, but they would end up taking pictures of us, taking pictures of them. So again, the biosensor. Your body is the most sophisticated pollution detector available, and it's free. So listen to it. We all have a lot of smells. There are smell charts that are out there. We'll probably be sending out you know, after this, anybody who signed up, we're going to be trying to send out some documents, not right away. We're still getting them together. And the certain smells, indicate a problem, like rotten eggs, sulfur, H2S. A lot of landfill people are dealing with H2S, and also in the fracking industry, there's some H2S. Could be sewage or gas leaks. They put mercap in natural gas lines that are, going to houses. So I've always told people, if you smell something like that in your house, you definitely call, for example, Pico or PGW if you're in Philly, or whatever your gas carrier is, Columbia. Don't ever mess with that. Because that indicator is basically put there at a level like for our noses or our olfactory to sense and understand, because that means it's becoming at a dangerous level, which means it could eventually, if you're in an enclosed area, combust. Sweet chemical odors of use. These are solvents. A lot of people know what gasoline smells like, or petroleum. Burning plastic is the combustion of waste materials. You're not allowed to burn plastic. I don't think anywhere in Pennsylvania. So if you smell that, you say something. It's not good for you. It causes dioxins, which everybody knows is pretty bad for your health. Ammonia, fertilizer runoff, industrial discharges. And no smell doesn't mean no problem, because there are odorless gases. And that's what's scary about some of this. So taste, metallic taste. I don't know if anybody's been around some things, but not just you don't just smell, sometimes you taste it too, like it's in your mucous membranes. One of the things that a doctor, Ned Katire, has always taught me is once you smell it or taste it, it's in your body. It's in your biology. So it's not that like we can sit here and say that it's safe. We did not consent to that. It trespassed into our air, and now it's into our bodies. So these slides will be given out. So I don't want to go too far into this, because I know you all can read, and this will be available for everybody, so you can you know look over it afterwards. But sounds are going to be something, again, data centers are very concerned with. People in the fossil fuel industry that are around fossil fuel infrastructure are dealing with compressor stations, which have these like a really annoying constant low hums and vibrations, especially in the drilling world. Those drills do create particular sounds that are at such a low frequency, it's hard to detect. But everybody feels it, and it really does affect your psychological aspect, and as well as your health. Um, I'm a person who gets migraines, so this would drive me crazy. The pumping or hissing at night, it could be emergency transfers. Sometimes they have emergency, what they call blowdowns. They don't necessarily have to inform the community. And a lot of things that we've done in the Mariner East is kind of made it so that our local municipalities have to be notified of any emergency work. And these are things you can do in your municipality to, so they can't say they're doing routine maintenance. They still have to tell the community, because it's not just routine maintenance usually. There's usually something else going on, because they just don't want to tell you that there's something wrong in their dangerous pipeline, for example. Yeah, so moving on. So your body does keep the score. And this is what, in PSR PA, we're here as a public health organization. And so, the health impacts alone don't prove a cause, but the patterns in your community are evidence worth documenting. Seek medical care first. And I understand a lot of people I've talked to, it's very hard with their health practitioners. They feel like they're not being listened to, but at least make sure that they document it on their charts. You want it written down somewhere. So Respiratory, sudden onset of coughing or wheezing, nosebleeds without obvious cause, burning throat or eyes. Anybody who's been around a lot of a fracking infrastructure has had a lot of these. Um, Neurological headaches correlating with the wind direction. That's one of the things that's hard. The wind does carry the pollutants, even though it could be like not near you. It does carry it towards you. Also, like when you have inversions, it keeps it lower to the ground, the pollution, and it may not normally on a normal day affect you, but all of a sudden you're feeling like kind of sick. You may have infrastructure in the area and it's being held to the ground, depending on your topography. Say you're in a valley, it could be held to the ground. So always document your health aspects, like journal them. I know it sounds kind of over the top, but if you don't, you're not going to be able to see the pattern in things. So you could look back and see the wind direction changed or shifted that day, and you could start to see a correlation of your symptoms, in correlation to the wind direction, and could possibly look back and say, oh my gosh, there's this infrastructure. It's, upwind and I am downwind of it. Memory or concentration issues, numbing or tingling. GI digestive. We had this in Mariner when they contaminated our water. I personally had it, Shiga toxin, because they got basically cow poop in my water. Very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So you need to always go to a doctor when you're having these problems, because for example, Shiga is a if you don't catch it, you don't stop drinking the source, you could get really sick, and it could lead to, from what I understand, death, which I didn't know. But yeah, always talk to somebody, talk to your doctors that, if you have continuing issues, skin, eyes, rashes, pattern signals. Multiple neighbors are reporting the same symptoms. Pets or livestock are sick. This is the one thing we all have seen, is that the animals actually get sick before the humans, and then the children, and then the adults. Symptoms correlate with operations, and symptoms improve when they're away from it, which I saw in my case. They stopped drilling, my water got better. When they start drilling again, the water got bad. So that's a correlative aspect. Always document it. Date, time, symptom, activity, onset. This is the most important thing. Wind direction, weather conditions, proximity to the facilities or operations, and who else was affected. And start building a map. Visualization is really good, and it helps you understand you're not crazy. And that's the thing, they try to make you feel like you're crazy. You're not crazy. What is going on in your body is real. Um, all right, identifying features. So what to document here? Identifying features, labels on the equipment and containers, survey stakes, markings, truck plates, company names, site permits. You can, when you're dealing with behaviors and activities, the workers' activities and movements, equipment being used or deployed, changes from previous observations, or night work or unusual hours. These are just examples, remember? So it's like you want to look at, you got identifying features, you got behaviors and activities you can be documenting, the security and personnel, that's an important one, and the violations that are observed. Eventually, when you're watching these things all the time, you're going to find violations. I always say this, if they don't want you watching for a reason. So, like, those violations without you watching would be unseen, unheard, and sometimes they don't report them. So if you're watching them all the time, you're going to find them, and that's what we learned, especially here in, the Mariner East fight that we had, and also a lot of the other fights that I've been, not fights, just work that I've been doing with PSR PA. Security personnel I do want to address, because the security guards, locations and IDs. So in Pennsylvania, they're supposed to have a security. They're supposed to be registered as security. They're not supposed to, especially on pipelines and easements. It's a homeland security thing. The workers are not supposed to be taking pictures off of the easement. So they have to have a security guard that's registered in the State Department. And we found that out, and we started getting them in trouble. They could get fired, the workers, and they used to aggressively take pictures of us until we learned that and stopped it by speaking out. And they had to get security guards that are registered. These are people that are sitting in unmarked cars in our neighborhoods with tinted windows that we didn't know if they had a security permit. The whole thing about registering with the State Department, or the state as a security agency, is because they have to abide by certain ethics and standards. you know, so it's important to make sure if they call themselves security that they're registered. So I don't know if it always works, but it worked for us. Um, Anyone who's photographing you, they should be a security person, not just a worker. Interactions with workers, they have the police presence and badge numbers. Always, these are things you want to document when you see these people. Violations observed, which are environmental, health, safety, and permit. We will go through that. Um, So some placards, labels, and signs. So I have a document that I'm putting together that's going to go more into depth with some of these things. So if you're going to like infrastructure, this could be anywhere from like trucks, trains, and as well just buildings, well pads. So there are some things that are kind of confusing that people don't understand what those markings mean. And also, if you're just driving down the road, you start to look at trucks driving down the road, and you're like aware of what these things mean. It's I would stay far from the truck sometimes. Like DOT transport placards. These are some examples of them. So, explosives, gases, flammables. These are all the numbers that should be on those placards. One of the ones I want to focus on, which is going to be our case study, is this number 7, radioactive, because we have something in the fracking world that's called T-norm radioactive waste. And this has been a problematic issue in Pennsylvania that I haven't seen any number 7 placards, but I've seen residual waste on trucks, but they absolutely have radioactive waste. So we're trying to figure out why they're not properly labeling something that is actually classified as radioactive waste in regards to what we've measured in the radioactive levels with our instruments and with certified labs. So then there's the National Fire Police Association, and these are the diamonds, which on the next slide, I'm going to be able to show you what that means. There's the one that has like the blue, red, yellow, and it tells you what those things mean. I took hazmat and hazwapper when I was working for the government. It's an interesting class, which is what taught me this. I didn't realize that a lot of people don't understand what those things mean, and it does give you a lot of information as to what is being carried in that tanker or sitting in that tank near you. There's also OSHA labels, and these are for the workers, right? So they know what's bad in their facility. And with fracking, we haven't seen many of these. I mean, we're starting to, but it's not like anybody's checking them. For reasons being, we don't need to get too much into that, but they are exempt from a lot of stuff, and these workers are not being properly trained or informed. So pipe markers, if you've seen on the sides of the roads, or if you've seen uh, on an easement, they have like little markers. They are required. Uh, they are required to be on either side of any type of crossing, like trains or in a road. And if they're not, that's a violation, by the way. And that the document that I'm going to share with you all that you have after this will show some of that information for you. So pipeline and well signs. This is interesting for people in fracking world. We have a lot of orphan abandoned wells. We have conventional and we have unconventional wells. They all kind of look different. We can't get close to the unconventional ones, but the conventional wells are just sitting in the middle of the field, and there are regulations that they're supposed to have, which then becomes a violation if they do not have them properly labeled. And here's the pipeline marker thing that I was talking about, which is missing marking at a crossing. It's a PHMSA violation, which is part of the DOT or Department of Transportation. These are in regulations, so they should be done. And I don't think we pay attention to these things. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm not saying I nitpick everything, but this industry gets away with a lot. So heck yeah, I'm going to look at everything and find a violation, because it's probably a pattern of behavior that they're doing. If they can't even do it right here, they probably have poor housekeeping in another area. So again, that's patterns that we see. So yeah, get on them. Yeah, everybody knows call before you dig 811. That's when you're gonna see the little flags marked. And that's that should happen. Everybody should be calling anything before they dig. And that's why we see people striking pipelines and having, a leaking pipeline or possibly explosion. We hope not, but it's very dangerous. PA, DEP, oil and gas well signs. My next slide will actually show you what to do and what everything should be on those facility signs and watchdog tips. All right. So like trucker, my thing is about like, I don't want to overwhelm everybody. Again, you'll have this. So DOT placards, all 4 sides of the vehicle. I don't know. I have not seen that. I'm sure a lot of you haven't. Orange panel, 4-digit UN. These are numbers. This is going to be explained in the document that I said. There's too much information in this for a full talk. It could be its own talk, by the way. But I found it interesting looking at this because we all have seen residual waste trucks, which they get to call it residual waste. I haven't necessarily seen so much like in regards to all 4 sides of the vehicle mark. So I'm still looking into that, but I think that was an interesting thing I found, especially when we went out and looked at some of the trains recently that we were at. The markings were on the very back of the train where the two tankers meet. It was in between there, and there's nothing on the outsides of it. So yeah. I don't think that's actually enforced very well. I'm not sure why, but we are still looking into it. Example of identifiers. And I'm going to use oil and gas wells, being that Pennsylvania has a huge, we're number two fracker uh, in the country. A lot of guys have probably seen this, and a lot of people who are not familiar with this, I think it's important to get familiar, especially like in data centers, because this is what's going to be fueling in a lot of these data centers is frack gas. Oil and gas is getting super excited about data centers too, because it's perpetuating this industry. So something simple, when you are looking at an oil and gas well, these are the requirements. They must be clearly visible and legible, must be maintained at all times, and must be located so can be easily read from the access road or entrance. And I know it sounds nitpicky, but we've seen a lot of stuff that's not. Like this is, I don't know what they call it, but this one in Austin Town was, I mean, I guess that's clear, but you could actually call an inspector out there and be like, this is not clearly labeled. Something falls off in a windstorm, call it in. Let the inspector tell them to fix it, because they should learn housekeeping. And as you can see, the condition of the tank even is terrible. Their housekeeping is pretty terrible. I'm not sure why, but whatever. The little NFP I was talking about in the last slide, this is what I'm talking about. I'm sure some of you have seen these. So this is what that was talking about. And it's like talking about the health hazard is the blue, the flammability hazard, the instability hazard, and then oxidizing, which, this is a conventional oil tanker, and it has 1, 3, and 0, which means it's got a low health hazard. I don't know if I agree with that. Who gets to determine that? I guess it's them. The flammability hazard is quite high, and because it's oil, and probably has some, gases in between the oil, the liquid oil, and it's off gassing. So that is what's usually flammable, is the gas. And it says there's no instability hazard. And when you come to unconventional, an unconventional well usually has these signs out front of it, which talks about the water usage, talks about the name. So it has to clearly mark and be clearly labeled as to what, who, and again, what's the well name, what's the permit number or API number, and who's the operator of it. So that is just an example for y'all. Right. So the types of violations that we can be looking at is like permit violations, air quality, water pollution, sound and light pollution, and equipment issues, failures and lack of equipment. There is actually violations in that, meaning they're unsafe, they're leaking gasoline, or they are not maintained. It's not safe for workers to be working with these large pieces of equipment that could be, not, properly labeled. For example, some of them have to also have, license. I've seen trucks without license plates. They've taken their license plates off. There's examples. So always document those things. And when you come with air and water, we have the Clean Air Act and we have Clean Water Act. These are difficult to the violations. I would say for me, the air quality ones have been the most difficult to provide because our agencies basically permit to pollute. So, but if your neighbor's burning trash next door, you can get them in trouble. But, our industries are allowed to do the same thing in our neighborhoods, and they are permitted to. So it's kind of weird. But the water pollution one's easy for me because if you are capturing something like an erosion and sediment control on a construction site, for example, and you see silting of water because there's a major rainstorm and their erosion and sediment control fails, if you watch that sedimentation go into, say, a storm drain that leads to a waterway of Pennsylvania, that's a direct violation. Absolutely document it. And the way you document that is by taking a video showing it going from their site all the way to either the storm drain or to the waterway. And it's pretty hard for that to be argued against because it's a violation of our Clean Streams Act in Pennsylvania. The Clean Water Act is federal. We have clean streams in Pennsylvania. Sound and light, this is all about municipal ordinances. A lot of rural areas do not have this. We do in the suburbs, and I believe in the city might be different. I'm not familiar, but this is just about checking your ordinances. Um, you know, trespass and no notification. Operators must notify landowners before they're coming on if for an easement. Know the notification rules and the easement terms. And as well for you guys, like no trespassing signs, if they're posted, they're there. A lot of people don't know what purple on trees means. You see like spray painted purple on trees. That's actually a no trespass sign. But if you don't know it, you can kind of play dumb and be like, I didn't know that was what it was. But that doesn't necessarily, it's just, I don't know who started that, but I learned it. I was just like, oh, look, purple trees. I didn't know what that meant. It said, don't go on my property because they don't want to put a sign up every tree. But okay. Um, when you're identifying violations, if there's a proper like an infrastructure or project, make sure you have the permits on hand and at least in your phone so you understand what you're looking at, what they are doing, whether it be like their NIPTs or some of their erosion sediment control requirements. The common reportable, these are reportable violations, are improper labeling, sinkhole and ground substance near infrastructure, especially pipelines, erosion and sediment control failures during construction, groundwater aquifer disturbances. I wish that was easier, but it's hard to prove. It's gotten some, we've gotten some attention to this, but it's just important to understand that if your water has changed and you have some kind of construction in the ground, that is important to keep note of. And the reason is that as a well owner, we are responsible for the health and safety of our well, and that's just the well. The well goes into an aquifer. Our government literally permits people to drill through the same aquifer our wells go through it, but we have no ability to stop it or consent to that. So that's why you have to go in and make a public comment for that you don't want it. But before that happens, you always make sure you have baseline water testing in your wells, making sure that everybody with a well should be testing their water every 6 months, by the way, and that's in the EPA suggestion. So with a lot of this, stuff that's coming on with data centers, people should be getting their wells tested every 6 months in the least. But if you know the construction is coming, get it done now. And I would do it, every 6 months because seasonally, well, aquifers can change. Just have a good record of what your behavior of your well is, and as well the flow rate of your well. Broken or malfunctioning equipment, you can do visible damage or leaks, and illegal releases or leaks. Sound light violations, again, checking your ordinance. It's kind of repetitive, sorry, but other events to document. And this is like, we have to talk about the difference between a violation and a concern. Just because it's not a violation doesn't mean you shouldn't document it, because your concerns are real and they could lead to something that you may not, know, but don't leave it hanging out there. Don't feel like you're alone. Document it. So these are health impact, drinking water changes, air pollution, like visible emissions, flaring events, haze or odor plumes, trucks and placards, people who are dealing with a lot of fracking. Those residual waste trucks are probably the most annoying thing because we know it's more than just it's actually hazardous waste that has a loophole that doesn't allow them to have to classify it when it has stuff like radioactivity or heavy metals in it. Still, even tankers that are coming through, just always document them, make sure they have everything right. Because, for emergency service, for the emergency responders, that if a truck tips, a truck falls, goes off the road or it gets into an accident, these emergency responders are cleaning up something they don't know. And so we have a lot of work to do on that with in the fracking world. When it comes to like trains and whatnot, there's pretty strict standards. But again, in my case study, you'll see why I think it's kind of crazy. We don't have so much pressure on the fracking industry when they have radioactive waste. There should be labeled number 7 and be transporting radioactive waste, which can't be accepted anywhere in Pennsylvania. It must go out of state because we don't have any landfills or any facilities that have the certification to accept it. Unplanned or excessive flaring, document duration, color, and smoke. And that's important, documenting the duration of a flare, because they do have some limitations on these. And especially when you see dark smoke coming out of a flare, that is not okay. You must document it, especially if you get a particular precipitant that's laying on your car. Take a picture of that, swipe it up, put it in a baggie. I don't know, just make sure you show it to them, because what I'm going to explain to you when an inspector comes out from DEP, which has frustrated a lot of people, they have to capture it in order to do anything. So construction and surveying, new work, surveying stakes, heavy equipment, just these are things that may not lead to a violation, but are just something of concern of you, you must document. And it's not to make you crazy, but it's just to, if you know something's coming in, this is how you start to know when it's happening, or, if they're doing it right. Some of these companies come in before they even get their permits and start knocking trees down. They start putting equipment on the site. It's almost like, hey, we're already here, so we might as well get the permit. Document that. It's ridiculous behavior that we've all kind of witnessed. Situational awareness. This is knowing your surroundings. So property awareness is very important. Don't take care not to stand on an easement or trespass on work sites. I don't even care if it's your toe or anything. We have had police called on us because they were waiting for us to make one mistake. So be very careful about where you're standing. You are able to stand on sidewalks, even if they are going through it and they're trying to fence off your sidewalks. Anything public is. There's easements from the middle of the street. I think it's 50 feet. And if you have like a pipe, a telephone pole easement, that's still an easement. You can stand on that side of the street where the telephone poles are because there is a public utility, which is ours. But just make sure you know those things before you do it. They keep trying to tell people to get off the property, and that's not true. You have to know that. Don't obstruct the ability for the workers to do the work. That is absolutely going to end up in a lot of an arrest or at least police being called. Respect the homeowner's privacy, private property, and community. Know the easement boundaries before you get them. And this is all things. These things should be mapped out, and you can get these from the DEP or whoever has permitted them. I definitely would suggest you do that if you're going to fight something like that. Do not take unnecessary safety risks. Please do not. Like, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, trust that intuition. If you don't have the proper equipment or protection equipment, don't go out there and put yourself at risk because that's not going to help anybody's cause, especially not you. We do not want anybody being unsafe. Avoid the exposure to contaminants. Stay upwind when possible. That's very important. And be aware of what you may be bringing home on your clothing and shoes. That's what people don't think. Remember, we were talking about this in some of our circles about workers bringing it home to their children. You walk on your floor, your dogs and your animals are walking on it. So make sure you remove those clothes, decontaminate your footwear before re-entering your vehicle home. There's booties you can get if you're walking around sites like that. I'm saying this because I've been walking on sites that have radiation. So I really don't want to bring that home. I don't want to put it into my washing machine. I don't want to spread it around my community. So make sure you decontaminate at the site, and you don't want it in your car as well. So when in doubt, back up. That's the great observation from my side is it just stay the heck away from it. Be safe first. Still images, pictures, videos, drones. Okay, this is easy. Like we all know, we have a phone. Take a picture every time you want, and make sure it's GPS stamped. And that's an app we can talk about. If anybody's questions, I can give you some suggestions of apps. Those are very important. Yes, there is metadata in your phone, but not all the time does it translate to. I've seen it where it doesn't. I can't see if somebody sends it to me. I don't see it. It might be on your phone, but when you send it to somebody else, it may not transfer. This is pretty easy, right? Shoot wide, then close. Context in detail. That's important. So when you're trying to look at something, you can't tell them like, look what I see right here in this one marker. Take a step back and make sure you come from the wide angle and move into like medium to like as close as possible because you want to be able to focus in on what the thing is. If it's like small, that where it's coming from. Give some perspective. Timestamp and GPS stamp is critical for evidence and videos as well. Live streaming, know when to turn it on and off. There are situations where you do not want to be live streaming. But live streaming does help bring it out to community and has been my safety mechanism. So when I had nobody with me, my friends on my live stream were watching me and they would actually call the police while they saw workers doing something. Or if the workers tried to call the police, they would call the police like saying that we witnessed you. They were my protection and my backup. So sometimes you are alone, and live streaming was actually very helpful for me. And plus, it gets people who can't get out what's going on and what instead of having everybody in danger, it tells everybody in your community what's going on, and they can take their appropriate safety measures for them to protect themselves. State clearly on the feed what you're observing. It helps a lot. People are just like, what are we looking at? Make sure you have to constantly repeat yourself as well. And just it sounds weird, but people come in and come out, and you want to make sure that people understand what you're watching. It helps your video a lot. Keep videos short and focused on the violation or just whatever it is you're doing. Drones are a really important tool when you can't trespass and you don't want to trespass. I mean, then this is how you can see what's going on. And then a bird's eye view really gives you a full picture of what's going on. Also, like in regards to showing how crazy it is, how close it is to homes, you can zoom out and see like, look how close this home is next to this well pad, or how close they're building these pipelines to homes. So you have to keep a safe distance from hazardous situations. You don't want your drone getting destroyed. Check the FAA rules and local no-fly restrictions, typically near airports, and especially when we had Joe Biden here, we couldn't fly because every time he came home, we had a no-fly zone. which is fun. Drone footage has been a critical evidence in the past cases. It is, I can't explain to you how amazing drones have been for us out here. Workers, security, police, and regulators interacting with workers. We've already kind of gone over this. This is more in depth, but that's kind of one of the pictures I took anytime I went out, and I'm in the middle of the woods when they had the lake, so I was all alone. And these workers, I was surrounded by a bunch of workers. It was nerve-wracking, but I was on live feed too. And then they are taking pictures of me. And that guy did not have a security vest on. He was not security. So once again, a worker was taking pictures of me. So I reported it because they weren't supposed to. But this is I'm trying to clean up a spill in my community, and they're taking pictures of me like I'm doing something terrible. It's really annoying. It's an intimidation and bullying tactic. So don't even be phased by it. Just take pictures back. Do what you're doing. Make sure you document everything you want. Don't be intimidated. You may be photographed or filmed from the security, of course. And see, that guy has security jacket on. He can take pictures of me. You may be asked to leave. If you are asked to leave because you're too close or causing danger, you should leave. And then take a step back and take your image and your stuff from a safer spot. Um, you may be threatened with a police call. You will be sometimes. And yeah, go ahead. Call my police. Waste our taxpayers and our police force time, which they did several times over and over. But when the police are called, remain calm. We already did this. Know your rights. Have legal context on your phone. This is so important. When you say legal context, if you don't have a teammate who could call for you, because if you all of a sudden get arrested, you want to know, people want to know where you're going. I'm not saying everybody's going to get arrested. That's sometimes. So here's the equipment I've been using. It's a field toolkit. I think you should have one in your I usually keep a bag in my car for when I go out. It has safety equipment like first aid kits, binoculars, gloves, muck boots are so critical. N95 particulates and respirators when you're in VOCs, like bad stuff. You do want a respirator. I carry it everywhere I go. Dosimeters for you. It measures like the contamination that you have been in. Some people don't need it if you're not that going into that much. And the booties for your shoes, which I told you, so you don't contaminate. You can just take them off and throw them out. Um, you know, the environmental parts. These are some things you can do for your own kit if you have the money, or if you don't. Or some organizations can help with it. Methane meter, TDS meter, and pH decibel meters. People are going to be wanting to get them soon. Geiger counters for radiation and sampling kits. We have like some cyclopore PFAS kits, which are really easy to help test waters. Sample containers for water and soil collection. Doesn't help. Doesn't hurt to have it. A cell phone, obviously. I think that the best one is like if you know your DEP or EPA inspector and you've had them out, make sure you have their contact in your cell phone, especially the local one, because you can call them when they're at the scene and because you already have it, and then you could be like, I'm here now, do you have time to come out here? Now you can witness what I have seen, because in the next slide you're going to see why, or the next few. Binocular, field notebook. Always keep a field notebook. And if you are nervous or alone, a dash cam or a wearable camera, just like the police, because a dash cam shows that it keeps you safe. It really does. If somebody tries to intimidate you or follow you or something to that effect, it's caught on your dash cam and you have the evidence. And here at PSR PA, we have some advanced tools. So we use we have a drone with a thermal imaging. Drones are not that expensive like regular drones at this point, I think. And there's, usually you have to have one in each community. Somebody should be a drone operator in each community. So usually there's a lot of youth that love these things. So find out who the young one is with a drone and utilize them. PIDs are for VOCs. Libs for heavy. These are equipment we don't have to get into, but these are some things that you can do for on-site inspections that are, pretty. Some of them are expensive, but some of them are very useful. And we have the FLIR optical gas imaging camera, and the other one is creating a sensor network. Purple Airs. We have Purple Air set up. You could do sound sensor network. So basically, I look at a sensor network like a neural network. It's something you can sit home and let it do the work for you and see what what's going on in your community. And it's real time and open source. So we always want things to be open source. It's free to everybody. And real time means it's taking those numbers at that time. So those are some suggestions. You don't put it in your field kit, but that's just something we deploy in our community instead of us having to be out there all the time. And I didn't mention this, but get a security camera if you're close to infrastructure in your house and point it towards that, because you could watch them all the time. You don't have to sit out and watch them. You don't want to drive yourself crazy almost. But if you have a camera and you can point it at the infrastructure, then why not? I've seen people put them up on poles and watch them. They did not like that. So, but that's a way to keep eyes on them at all times. And he live streamed it, which is amazing. So what inspectors are limited to? This is important for people to understand, and like, how can you help them? So in DEP, our inspectors, they must witness the odor or pollution event to even to issue a violation. So that's why people are calling, oh, I had a smell event. They come out 2 days later and like, we don't smell anything. They can make corrective actions and recommendations. They can issue permit violations if they observe them directly. Now, remember, they have limited staff and limited coverage of your area. So, and we don't know what the training for the staff is. We're trying to figure that out. Like, what kind of, how are they qualified to do these things? So the qualifications are also unknown. I don't know their background. It's kind of scary for us to know that, not know that. And are they using the tech, all the tech that they have? Are there enough staff trained or certified to use it regionally? And why is the technology they have being limited to use, and by who? These are questions I have. And if more and more people get doing this, maybe we can get some answers. So, and then health impacts. What can these DEP inspectors do when there's impacts that are part of the complaint? Next one is, how can you help them? And I'm going to explain that. So you have to submit a DEP online complaint. I understand we can call, especially when it's an emergency. When it's an environmental emergency, you must call the 1-800 number that I've listed. But even so, follow it up with an online complaint, because that is traceable. And, something we could all write to note, and we could see a pattern when we do write to notes of how many people have complained. Typically, it takes 2 people for them to do anything in a complaint. So one person can complain. That may not stir an investigation. They might be like, okay. But when you get 1, 3, 4, 5 people complaining, they have to go out there. They will go out there. I'm not sure how quick they will, but in the emergency, they're supposed to call you. An emergency number is supposed to be, you're supposed to be called back within that hour. And they're supposed to go out and have somebody on call, and then they go out and inspect that site that is the emergency. The online complaint could take up to, they said, 10 days to respond. I've seen about 72 hours, 48 hours to 72 hours as a response, and usually an inspection will happen within that week. But on that form, there is a checkbox for health impacts. It's in a complaint form. It's just, one says, have you had any health impacts? Make sure you check that box if you had health impacts. And do you want the Department of Health to contact you? Check that box too, because then it will go into another system for the Department of Health, which somebody will contact you from the Department of Health. Now you have your complaint in 2 systems, as well as your health impact, registered in both systems. I'm not sure if what people have experienced has been in any result of that. But again, the more of these we have on any type of area, the better it is for us to try to make change, or make it, bring it up to as an issue that needs to be resolved. Or yeah. So get the inspector's cell phone number. I already told you that. Take photos of be detailed what you want. Now, this is about complaints, right? So how you help them. Limit to subjective information. Like, stick to observational facts. Don't complain about how somebody treated you. These complaints got to be very, you want them to do things that you want them to do. It's like, I saw at something 100 hours, I saw black smoke coming out of the flare stack. I smelled these things. It happened for X amount of hours. So make sure you include the date, time, and GPS, and what you smell, saw, heard. And also, make sure they know the wind direction, if you can figure that out, so that they know that it was going towards you. That's just been helpful for us. So, and the regulatory investigation. So this is also when you see an inspector go out. This is what we are working on. So I'm not going to tune into this. I do not want to, I'm not bashing the DEP. I know they're doing their best. But these are things I've seen, like rush surveys, meaning the inspectors, minutes on inspections that should take hours, skimming rather than examining, limited access to areas. So they're not able to get to everything. And so they're not, not inspecting it, which it may be a part of the problem. Pre-announced only. I really can't stand that. That's routine inspections. Pre-announced inspections should not be a thing. Because they're going to clean their site up. But in a complaint, there shouldn't be a pre-announcement. And if you go below that one, no community input. So when an inspector goes out to a site and you put the complaint in, my opinion is that they should be talking to the person who put the complaint out. Go to them first and let them explain to you what happened. I don't see that happening. So the residents and downstream neighbors haven't been interviewed or consulted in this whole entire thing. They just go to the industry and inspect the space, but I don't think they're getting a good idea of what people are observing. the cozy relationships. I think some of us seen that. Inspectors out of facility staff appear overly friendly. I'm not going into gifts, but that's happened. We've seen that in our upper governments. I'm not going to say whose name, going to baseball games. Missing documentation, no photos or notes during inspection, or records that appear pre-filled or even not filled out. When you look at these, always ask for your report after you ask for a complaint. Make sure they hand you the final report before they close it out, or when they close it out. You want that. There's always a case number that goes with it. So make sure you get all that information for your files afterwards. Don't just let it go away, because they won't contact you for it. Make sure you request it. And they usually will give it to you. You can also do an informal request, information request, but it should just be given to you if you're the one who, completed that complaint. And they do close them even though it hasn't been resolved, just let you know. And you can say, I don't consent to that. Because if they didn't do their a full inspection, in your opinion, you can say that, but they're still probably going to complain. But you want that noted, at least in the email. And that's the other thing. Always email them. Don't do that on the phone. Get their email and have that conversation over email. So keep a journal, and this is afterwards, after you've reported. Make sure you keep a journal, a record of we do case files, record of observations, complaint filed, interaction with officials. Put down how you feel the official interacted with you. Were they, bossy? Were they, nice? Were they actually inquisitive? Were they trying to figure out what you're doing? Make sure you document how you feel that government employee. A lot of women have experience with some of our regulators that they felt they were treating them differently than they would treat their husband, for example. And that is not okay. Make sure that is documented, and it can be brought up into your own complaint as to their behavior. Shouldn't be treating people like that. Log every call, date, time, what number did you call, who did you speak with, what did you discuss, and get their email. Always get their email. So important. And this is so important when you talk about this. Like, if you keep a log of this, you'll start to see a pattern of behavior. And then you also know who to call when you don't get any response from somebody else. You get a whole entire document of who to call from the DEP for what. And so like most complaints, depending on what your complaint for, it goes through a complaint system. It's an overall system. That system then looks at it and says, okay, in this region, it seems like an air quality issue. So they're going to send it to the air quality team. If you mention in your complaint, I smelled this and that, smelled like gasoline, I feel like there's radiation. I saw radioactive waste or something. I have a Geiger counter, and you put the word radioactive and you put the word air quality. And so that should go to 2 different teams, because there's 2 different areas, but sometimes it just goes to oil and gas, which is really weird. But oil and gas doesn't have Geiger counters, and they're not able to check. So be very clear on those complaints as to what your complaint is. And if you feel like there's something with the water, make sure you say the word water. I feel like there's a water quality event. I feel like there's an air quality issue here. Or I feel like there is, that there's possibly radioactive waste being leaked somewhere. All those words are ding words, and they should go to the right agencies that are qualified to handle that. You follow up in writing after a phone call. Typically, they will call you afterwards. Make sure you get their email and follow up that email with everything that you said in the phone call. And it creates a timestamp paper trail that can't be disputed. And again, save everything, which I hope is normal to people, but I've actually erased things by mistake, and it's not good. Archive the photos and videos in multiple locations, like we do hard drives, a cloud, and then like on your computer. Sounds paranoid, but sometimes things crash or you lose it. And external hard drives are always good. Use apps like Frac Tracker Alliance for GPS tagged file. We do support Frac Tracker is a wonderful organization. They do have a map that helps with all this. There's several others. This is one of our sister organizations that we love, so I do like to give a shout out to them. What impacts do watchdogs have? And this is what happened out of ours. Okay, we had and also in the fracking world, we had a Attorney General grand juries. That Attorney General was at the time Josh Shapiro. He is now our governor. What has happened out of those grand juries? Not much, I would say. The DEP rulemaking on HTD, that happened out of ours because of how much they just went in here and did, like horizontal directional drilling, and like the most they've ever done in any project without qualified people in the DEP understanding the harms of it. So our DEP decided to make stronger rules. That's because they screwed up so much and destroyed people's water. But I mean, we were the guinea pigs, I guess. And then on the PAPC pipeline safety rulemaking, this is crazy. We actually strengthen federal law, which the states can always do. So PHMSA 49 CFR 195, we strengthen through our PAPUC rulemaking enhancements to the regulation for hazardous liquids, because the pipeline is not like petroleum that we're dealing with. It was a very dangerous pipeline with a liquefied uh, it's liquefied petroleum, but it's actually just liquefied, like, as we said, butane, propane, and ethane. So I'm not even sure what my time is. I don't want to keep everybody. All right, I got a little bit of time here. I'm going to do this quick. This is a case study of Eureka Resources, which is a waste treatment facility in well, there's three. There's two in Williamsport, and the other one is in Wysox, Bradford County, Pennsylvania. This is a facility that takes on a lot of fracking wastewater, and they were trying to make pool salts out of it. It is currently being shut down. A few of us, Senator Katie Muth was included in this. I'm just going to shout out with her. We went out and we inspected this because workers were talking about how they were getting sick and they weren't getting paid. So they shuttered the facility because it wasn't working out, and they weren't getting put, but they were telling us that there was this waste that's just sitting in these tanks, and it was highly radioactive waste. So, it was about, so what happened was the DEP, NEP went out, and this is kind of the story of them. They claimed that they found, it was, you can read the story here. They couldn't, they were, this is what the fracking waste industry has a problem with. They don't know what to do with their waste. And so they're like, we're going to extract lithium. We're going to make pool salts out of radioactive material. Yes, that's true. And that is a picture of them right down here. The pool starts with the B marked on it because they were contaminated. I think it was bariums in them, which is not good. We have a saltwater pool, and I was really shocked to see that they're making pool salts out of fracking waste. So, this is kind of what they claimed. And all of these industries typically say, I am going to solve this problem. And then what happens is they are basically like a Ponzi scheme. They don't know what they're doing. The system never really ever works. And we see several of these facilities all over the place because they don't know what to do with their fracking waste. They spread it on roads in some states. Ours, we put it in landfills, which is where everything from this facility we found out through Right to Know is going. And it's really highly radioactive. So, the lithium extraction was the next thing. It has never been scaled commercially. It never worked. You'll probably see that in some news articles of them saying they can do that for our batteries. It doesn't work. So they had a worker for fatality in 2022, which is terrible. And that's basically because of poor training and poor facility maintenance, which is sad. It stood in 2024 is when we started looking at it. The facility was idled, so we went out and collected samples. 2025 it spilled into the one in Williamsport, just spilled into the Susquehanna, which then brought the DEP's attention to it, and then they ended up shutting down all three of the facilities, even though some of us have been complaining about the standing stone. So this is like kind of what happened. There's the boom, the pivot, the decline, and then they have the liability. And this is kind of something we all need to understand. This happens in several facilities. Why am I saying this in Watchdogging? Because we were out there several times. I have droned the place. I have been putting complaints in about the place. And, this is a larger company. And it's really important for Pennsylvanians to understand this, because where is all this radioactive waste going? What we're finding is it's going into our landfills. And what it should be going into is trains labeled with a number 7 marker of radioactive waste and being taken out of state into Utah. But we have not yet found that. We've been trying to do our own watchdog team, a collaborative that's trying to find these, properly labeled trains. And I'll show you on the next one. Oh, back. Regulatory crisis. This is exactly, I'm not going to go too much. So we got a DEP inspection to go out, and they found non-functional tank alarms. Also, we do know it's not on here. The RAD team, a radiation team, they have a RAD program, a RAD plan, which is a radiation plan for each of these facilities, because they actually admit that there's radiation. They were found to be guilty of not training all of their workers on radiation safety. So all those workers were at risk. They didn't have proper training. That was really where we had a problem. With that, we don't just fight against industry. We're actually fighting for the workers that are going in there. So this is where the waste is going from this site. This is from the Right to Knows that we got. It's going to Ohio for injection, and the Catawissa is going to White Pines landfill, which we visited too. It's actually terrible. This stuff is so high radioactivity, it should not be going to landfills. But what they do is they mix it and they dilute it and they kind of basically shield it from the gamma radiation. It's how they use it, detector. It's called gamma, and it's kind of an unknown right now in Pennsylvania if it's legal or not. So that's what we're working on. And this is what's supposed to happen with radiation. This is coming from Cabot Oil's. It's called the Hibbert Tank Farm. This is what they put in their presentation to DP. That is what they're doing. But we have not yet seen a radioactive train car or anything, or even any site like that has any labeled anything like this. So, and we've been to several. That's why the watchdogging. So as you see, it's supposed to go truck, transload, rail to Energy Solutions Clive disposal site in Utah or the Idaho facility. It's supposed to be on trains and getting out of here, and that's because it's anything greater than 270. And this stuff, what we have analyzed, is it was over 300 picograms that we got samples from. So I don't know how that worked. And this is what we found when we droned the facility that is now shuttered. That first picture is also our drone image. So we literally caught this. They have a dewatering. This is where they're pressing the filter cake on that number 3. So, again, you guys will see this, but they literally had this like setup, and then it was dewatering into a marsh. So the water's going into a marsh, which is right back here. You can see that these ones are ready. So these ones are drying. These ones are prepared for transport. And then you have these bags sitting out front. Not a single one of them is labeled with any hazmat marker. Nothing. And I don't understand why, but that means they're taking it to a landfill. They don't have to label it. That's kind of scary. Whereas you just saw the other document that said this is how it should be labeled, and it is not being done that way. So these are the questions we're left with, right? T-norm in landfills, why who were the solids tested? I put a right to know in recently, and I'm still waiting on that right to know. Or no, I put a DEP complaint in and said all of these things, and I'm waiting for that. I have not even gotten a response yet. So sometimes complaints take a little bit of time to get a response, but you don't give up. So it's pretty much, I'm not going to go any deeper, but these are, some things. If you get stuck somewhere, do more right to knows or federal resources, look at everything you possibly can, but just don't give up on something when you know it's dangerous. It's because it's harming everybody's community. Like, this is a Pennsylvania wide issue, and it's not even just Pennsylvania. It leaves out of our state into other communities. So, for me, this is about, making sure that watchdogs are protecting not just your local community, but you're protecting your entire state, because this stuff transports out of your own community and goes somewhere else. And just because it's not in your community anymore doesn't mean we should just stop looking. And that's my opinion. You don't have to all. So that's my watchdogs are always watching. That's my puppy, and she was the best watchdog of all. So when you see something, document it, report it, and share it. And then your instincts are data, and your community is your power. And that's kind of what I want to leave you with. I know I went through that fast. Again, we're going to be doing more specific ones, and these slides will be available for anybody. So I didn't leave much time for Q&A. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of stuff to cover.
We do have a question. Any advice on how to specifically approach this when using camera evidence? We aren't viewing in person, but have a 24/7 live camera where we submit evidence from to support our complaints about facilities.
What was the beginning of the question again? Sorry.
Any advice on how to specifically approach this when using camera evidence? And this isn't in person. This is a 24/7 live camera.
Oh, I love that. I mean, basically, you're free shotting. You have the evidence at hand. But like, how are you trying to use it? The only thing that, the evidence will do in regards to like a regulator is that it will help. It will stir an investigation at least. But again, they have to capture it to get any enforcement. So what's your target? Basically, is my question. Like, what are you trying to get out of the evidence? Like, do you want a violation, or do you want, probably I would assume you want something to stop that's happening. So you'd have to put the complaint in with that evidence if you can. I know our DEP doesn't allow for images, but once you get the email of somebody, once somebody responds to yours, you can obviously email that stuff to them. They'll give you a file share, and because videos are hard to send and they make it hard. Or if you have a contact already, I always I mean, everything's right to knowable as long as you put it in an email. Um, Video evidence is like make sure you cut it down. Like if it's being recorded, make sure you cut it down so it's not like they have to watch an hour of video. Make it as easy as possible for them, and that can stir an investigation. It cannot be used for enforcement on their part, but I don't know if that answers the question.
Thanks. Someone also asked, what equipment tools does someone need to create a valid record?
What
And I think
equipment?
that might go back to the time stamping sort of, but what would help make a record valid? I can think it could be a photograph or a film, whatever.
Timestamping and GPS. That is, so if you look at the apps, it puts it right on the front of the picture. Like some of the images, I don't want to go share, but yeah, like what makes it valid is, basically showing the GPS location of the area and the time that you took it. And of course, make it, if it's yours, you can validate it yourself. I mean, but say it went to court or something like that, and people try to say that it's not valid. If you're the one who took the picture, you can testify to the fact that you took that picture under oath, and as well, it's pretty clear where it's at. When these apps, I think, are pretty solid. There might be ones that are, more, I don't know. Like, I don't think they're like something that somebody could manipulate is what I'm trying to get at. Also, in that, to validate your metadata in your own phone should be like the backup validation. So in my regard, it's a proper, and always just, make sure notes and stuff go along with it, with the experiences. Sometimes a picture doesn't speak 1,000 words, so you got to make sure you need them to understand what it is um, what your issue is in the picture, and have no problem circling things in your picture, like if you have to, like, um, to get them to see what you want them to see.
I want to go back to the data center issue since that's what a lot of people are thinking about. You spoke about taking pictures before shovels go in the ground or recording things before anything goes in the ground. What types of things should people be recording right now in their communities?
I mean, recording, like, let's go away from like just recording, but yeah, recording, it means like you could also take notes. So looking at your truck traffic, right? Accidents, like, yeah, history of accidents and intersections where these areas are going to be. I would say, if you are on wells, you definitely want to get your wells tested as soon as possible, and not just for particular contaminants. Definitely put in PFAS in there, just for it's for reasons being we can talk about. But you would also want to check the flow rate of your well, making sure that the levels of your aquifer change, and they do change seasonally. So like you might have to do that a few times. I'm not sure how easy that is, but if you want to capture something, that's good. There might be also like water USGS monitoring wells in your area. I would definitely try to pull data off to see, what the behaviors are in the area before they, start sucking water out. There should be USGS monitoring of rivers and streams, understanding like tributaries and stuff, wherever they're going to be sucking water out. Also, your air quality. When trucks and stuff start rolling in, you're going to get like a lot more dust, a lot more 2.5 PM to particulate matter, 2.5 size micron. So, putting up air monitors and network is a good idea. And, I always say the sensors for sound and vibration. We're still working on like a little document for that, but I know, getting used to normal nighttime sounds in your area, trying to document that is a good idea. So, you can see where it was like, and I mean, I have a coworker, Rebecca Carden, who would be like, start looking at the behaviors of the animals, like the birds, and there's a lot of things you can document, but I think in regards to the easiest are, truck traffic, like past your roads, the conditions of your roads, like look at where your community is right now, how it looks like, and start, walk around and document every single thing you can. We're putting out a thing with that too, right? Tanya, eventually we'll have that out that goes through, a list of what we should be looking at. I can't remember off the top of the head some of mine, but those are for a start, I guess. If they're fragmenting your trees, if they're taking trees down, you're going to have impacts in your ecology. You're going to have impacts in your water drainage, water runoff, this sorbent, the way like putting out a cement jungle, basically, the way your water behaves in runoff, stormwater runoff is going to change. And that, will affect the local streams and wherever it runs into, it'll affect their water quality. So as much of the water quality issues that you can get like solved by whoever and whatever agency is collecting that data right now, it could be a river keeper around you guys too. Like look into your local river keepers, but also the USGS and yeah, whoever's doing studies that
One
think
thing I'll add, only because it came up when we were installing air monitors 2 days ago, they've removed a lot of trees in Northeast Pennsylvania. And the woman whose home we were at noted the fact that there have been a lot of forest animals dead on the road. So bear, fox, porcupine, things that you wouldn't normally see. So I think that is something else that people should
yeah.
look for.
Yeah, and there are a lot of biologists and stuff out there that are within these fights. So find your scientists that are also in this, and use everybody's a resource in some way. So find people who have in the conservation districts or who have been doing this work, even toxicology. I don't even know, like just any scientist you can gather. I know there's a lot of people in this fight, and people need to know. Sometimes they don't even know that they could be resourceful in this. And so always ask.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate those who stayed for the entire time. And of course, this video will be made available and we'll send it along with some resources. Thank you so much and good night.
See you guys.